All right, we are back, baby doll.
Welcome to the Thano and Javi show.
The show.
I'll write one line for a theme song each episode
Oh,
until we have a whole,
until we have a whole thing,
an entire theme song.
an entire theme song.
Yeah.
So, why are we here today, friend?
We are here to talk about the new movie from Pureflix. Good live.
Starting who?
Starring Mirabai War. I don't know. I was going to do opposites for all these people.
Yep.
But yes.
But we're here to talk about Evil Dead Rise.
Evil Dead.
So, all right. So before we start, let's preface this. Like, it's been a minute since we recorded.
Was it before the Mexico trip?
It was after, but it was like
D&D.
very early April.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like 3 weeks ago. We recorded for D&D.
April is the cruelest month.
It's crazy, especially in education. I feel like April is where it starts to feel like holy shit. Then the beginning of May is like holy shit. And then the end of May is like, all right, just fuck around for the last week.
You are not incorrect.
Yep. But we're here because we actually were able to finally go see a movie in theaters.
Finally.
We have not seen a movie in theaters since the D&D movie.
Yeah? No, because we saw the D&D movie before the other movie.
Okay, but since the recording for the podcast.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Since then, we've had a lot of big releases.
Yeah.
We had the Mario movie come out.
Mm-hmm.
We had
Renfield.
Mm-hmm. And how many of those have you seen?
0. It's been a busy couple weeks.
It's been a very busy couple weeks. We've missed so much. We've missed The Pope's Exorcist.
Yeah.
We've missed...
That movie looked like poo-poo, though. I'm not gonna lie.
You know, I've heard that it's good. I've heard that it's bad.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know.
I'd be down because I'd like a good Exorcist movie, but like it looked like poo-poo.
It did look like poo-poo. The trailer that I saw was like, oh my god, this looks really bad.
Yeah.
But we're excited because there's another horror movie out and about.
And that's what we do. That's what we do, kiddos.
That is what we do.
We review.
It's mostly horror movies that we review.
We review the scaries.
We review the spookies.
The scaries are good, but I don't want to be part of that community.
No
offense to the horror movie community, but I don't want to be locked in that niche.
You don't want to be locked in that niche?
Yeah, I only want to be locked in the niche of people who pronounce it niche.
Niche.
Yes.
As opposed to
niche. Yeah. But
I don't like that.
No, I don't like niche, to be honest with you.
You don't like niche?
No, I don't like niche.
I prefer niche over niche.
Yeah.
I feel like niche sounds wrong.
I had a biology teacher freshman year of high school who would pronounce it niche. And then I said hi to her in the hallway the next year, and she just gave me the most awkward hi back. She was like, hi.
Well, so Evil Dead. This is your first Evil Dead movie, right?
Correct.
All right. So let's talk about that for a second. So the new Evil Dead movie is, let's go and just do a brief synopsis. So explain to our listeners.
I have to explain what this is?
Yes.
So once upon a time, I had an app on my iPhone 4 called Army of Darkness, and it was a beautiful tower defense game with a man and a chainsaw for an arm and a shotgun in his hand, and he stopped skelly men from attacking this good book, and they had an evil book, and he had to kill the evil book. And somehow this is related to that.
Mm-hmm. Hold on one second. And is that any better? I think so. There we go. I just don't want to have to hear myself so loud through the...
You do have a lovely voice.
Through the headphones.
But the synopsis actually says, a twisted tale of two estranged sisters, whose reunion is cut short by the rise of flesh-possessing demons. That's quite a hyphenated word. Thrusting them into a primal battle for survival.
Very good.
As they face the most nightmarish version of family imaginable.
Sure. Right?
Yep.
That synopsis sounds nice. I think the only thing that kind of clues you in is the word twisted.
Yeah.
And maybe flesh possessing.
Flesh possessing is a word.
It's a word.
That is a word.
2 words, technically.
It's a hyphenated word.
Hyphenated word. But this movie, I feel like, for the uninitiated, like if you just like off the street, you go, I'm going to go watch a movie.
Yeah.
And this is your first
Like me.
like Thano.
Yes.
This is your first venture into Evil Dead,
There is a target audience for these movies.
and
And I was not it.
you are not that target
Yeah.
audience. I am. I have been a big fan of this series, not for as long as like other people have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a really long standing franchise.
70s, right? Technically for the first one?
83, I think.
83 was the first one.
Technically, so I think Dan just talked about this today in Charts with Dan.
Yeah.
The movie originally came out in 83, 81.
Yep.
And then it was kind of like released slowly, and then it had like its broad wide release in 83,
83.
right? So it's been around for a long time, but it was never like a broad mainstream movie.
Yeah.
It was always like it was always seen as like you said, very niche,
Yeah.
right? It has a very specific sect. It has, if there is ever a movie that has a cult following,
It was Evil Dead.
it's Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those movies that even growing up, I was like, this could be something that's like really cool, but I don't know if I really want to watch this.
So when Sam Raimi,
Yes.
when he first got announced to direct Spider-Man 1,
Uh-huh.
were people like, "Huh?"
The Evil Dead guy? I honestly I don't know. I was too young.
Because I guess it's not that much different from Tim Burton directing Batman.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question because I mean, I the reason why I know Sam Raimi right now is because really of those old movies, right?
Yeah.
But he was like very well known in like as let's look to spell Raimi.
R-A-I-M-I. Yeah.
Um, I know him because of his like directing of Spider-Man primarily.
Yeah.
And then you hear like, oh, you know, he does all these other like horror movies. You go, oh, okay, that checks out.
Right.
He's got primarily a horror resume if you like look him up.
Yeah.
Either when he is like directing horror or he's producing horror.
Mm.
He's gotten, geez, like if you look at his producer credits, he's got a lot.
Yeah.
He's got 60 producer credits, most of them horror movies, a few like actiony things, some comedy. All of his things are, you know, pretty comedic in like a weird way.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel like this series has been the one that he's always kind of gone back to.
Mm.
So we have Evil Dead 1, which is then kind of like rebooted in Evil Dead 2.
Oh, interesting.
Which it has to do with like he did not own the rights and the studio did not really own the rights
Yeah.
to the franchise because of some weird like contractual mumbo jumbo. So then they did Evil Dead 2, which basically retells the story of Evil Dead 1 in like the first half hour.
Mm.
And then it goes into like new stuff, which then leads into Army of Darkness.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all sorts of convoluted.
Yeah. Is Army of Darkness actually like medieval? Like,
yes.
Okay. Okay.
So Evil Dead 2 ends with Ash getting sucked into like a weird portal.
Yeah.
And he gets sent back in time to like, you know, Middle Ages. And he has to fight the Deadites.
Was this movie supposed to be a prequel? What we saw?
No.
Okay.
So for the sake of like story, right?
Mhm.
So in this movie, you have a family who lives in this shitty apartment.
Yes.
They
It is a shitty apartment.
a very shitty apartment, right? So we have mom,
And
3 kids.
A lot goes down.
A lot
in
goes
this
down
shitty
in this
apartment.
shitty apartment. So you have mom, her 3 kids. She's a tattoo artist. Her kids are like a bunch of like weird little misfits. And then they are visited by a sister who's like a groupie, right? Or
Yes.
sorry, a guitar technician.
A guitar technician.
Guitar technician.
An exotic guitar technician.
An exotic guitar technician?
Yes.
What makes her exotic?
I was thinking of
She's
other.
hot.
I was thinking of other euphemisms. And then I was gonna say exotic dancer,
Oh
but then I was
no,
like,
that's
nope,
very different.
makes no sense. So then I changed back to guitar technician.
Yeah. So then there's like an earthquake that happens,
Hmm.
and it reveals like a huge vault because the apartment building used to be a bank.
Is there the earthquake just randomly happens, right? We don't have any indication that something caused the earthquake.
So some people in like the forums and discussion
Yeah.
boards will say like it could be
This was the
cost.
evil. This was the evil. Like call it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But then like, well, why is it happening now? What hasn't happened before?
Right.
There's nothing that indicates that this has to be
Maybe the time
like,
was right. Who knows?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk a little bit
Yeah.
like about this. So that then releases like, oh, the they go, they grab the book and they of course read from it.
Yeah.
Which I will say this does play on that a little bit different than like the rest of the stuff.
This was prime dumbass horror shit.
Oh,
That entire
100%.
sequence.
100%.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as like the rest of the series goes, like this is the first time that like the main story does not take place in the cabin in the woods.
Mm.
That is more or less where that originates from. Like,
So I've heard.
yeah,
Yes.
like if you've seen what that 2009, I think is when Cabin in the Woods came out. Like
Yeah.
if you've seen that,
Hmm.
like no, it's got to be 2011 or 2012 because it was like right after Thor came out,
Okay.
something like that. And it is when like that created that stereotype of like things happen in the cabin in the woods.
Mm.
And this is the first movie that does not take place in the cabin in the woods. It takes place in this apartment complex in like urban areas, right?
Hmm.
Um and they do, I think, as far as like as someone who is a fan of this, who's seen the movies, who likes them, it does a good enough job at like giving you something new while still also like staying in its own lane.
I would imagine
Um,
there's something to this apartment setting.
yes. And you do get a really cool like cold open that does take place in the
The cabin
cabin
in
in
the
the
woods. Yeah.
woods. It's a nicer cabin for sure. At
Yeah.
least from like
Those
establishing shots, that
buildings
weird A-frame.
where the corner of the roof goes all the way to the floor. Very nice.
It's
Very
called an
nice.
A-frame.
Yeah. The what was I gonna say? This movie is the opposite of a slow burn
Yes.
because it hits you right away.
So, all right. So I was thinking about
Yeah.
this. Would you have rather this movie start slow and then just go hard? Or do you like the fact that it from the very beginning you go, oh, this is going to be this?
So my answer depends first and foremost.
Go on.
Um, for what this movie is trying to be, I feel like the choice it made was great. I also like movies now, and I'm not trying to shit on A24, but I do like horror movies that like Black Phone that are like
Sure.
unapologetically just like not A24 style horror.
Mhm.
Right. And I think by making this choice, it did so. I will say, like, for me, and where one of the reasons that I'm not like the target audience is that for me, this movie was just like very, very loud and
It
very
is
and very constant.
it
Right.
is a loud movie. And
It,
I will say, so I've seen it twice. I saw it opening night Thursday
at Dolby.
in Dolby, and then I saw it on Saturday at Hollywood Palms with my brother.
So not in Dolby. The
Not
second.
in
Yeah.
Dolby. And it's the Dolby sound.
Yeah.
It does make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So yes, I know Dolby would definitely like make it louder, but when I say loud, I mean volume and in the fact that like this movie is just like constantly in your face
Oh, for sure.
with grotesqueness
Yes.
all around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I mean to the movie's credit, like you said, that is exactly what it's supposed to
Yeah.
be. Granted, I will say the original couple movies are not like this level of violence. Like, yes, they are violent. Shit happens, things get blown up, things get torn off. But because of like their constraints that they had,
I was gonna say how much of that is just technology.
a lot of it, I
Yeah.
feel like. And it's also like what you're allowed to do with an R rating, right? Like in the past movies, like, yeah, Ash, gets his hand chopped off, but like it's not to the same level of like having someone like, scalped,
Yeah, there's a
right?
fucking scalping in scene one.
In scene, yeah, in like the
Yeah.
first 5 minutes is a
Yeah.
scalping, right? And I
There's
think
reading from a Bronte sister.
from a what?
Bronte, Wuthering Heights.
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're right. And I mean, it plays into its own hand. But this movie definitely you feel its influence from yes the overall Evil Dead series,
Mhm.
but for sure the 2013 movie that came out. Because that 2013 movie is a genuinely unsettling movie.
Yeah.
Like I watched the Evil Dead movies when I was in Mexico. I feel like a lot of the movies that I've seen that I shouldn't have seen, I've seen when I was in Mexico.
Mm.
This is like the fucking Wild West on Channel 5.
Yeah.
Um, but then you go from that and having nothing since like what, late 80s maybe.
Yeah.
I can't remember when Army of Darkness came out,
I'm looking. I think one of them
but
was in the 90s.
was it?
I think one of them was in
Oh,
the 90s.
92.
Yeah.
So like not having anything for almost 21 years.
Yeah. So 93 is Army of Darkness.
92.
Uh,
And then 2013 is the Evil Dead remake.
gotcha.
And just like going from that to 2013's Evil Dead, it's almost like whiplash by just how insane it is and like how like the Deadites are for anyone who doesn't know what Deadites are, they're basically like zombies.
Those are the
But
monsters.
the monsters, right? They are essentially they follow kind of like Buffy
I thought
rules.
we were talking about the fans. Yes, continue.
Oh, no, no, no. So you've seen Buffy, right?
A few episodes we saw during COVID on Facebook. On
Yeah,
Facebook Watch.
that's true.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so in Buffy, the way vampires work is they are humans who are possessed by a demon,
Mm,
and they can only exist here in our world in like the body of a human.
gotcha.
I feel the Deadites are basically that, but they're more like zombies
Yeah.
in like what they do and all that shit. But it's still a monster like inhabiting a human person.
Yes. That would be a medieval understanding of a if you look up like Greek like manuscripts of how to deal with a vampire, right? That would fit the description.
Yeah. Where the Deadites differ is that like they're borderline invincible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in
And
here,
yeah,
they can't bust down doors.
they cannot. They are weird. Their power levels are weirdly like
Weirdly wavular.
yes,
Yeah.
they're not very consistent. They're very inconsistent in how their
Yeah.
like how their powers like are shown. But so let's talk a little bit about like the main characters, and then we can kind of go from there. Um, so what do you feel about like the sisters and all that stuff?
They
So
are they are a likable pair. The honestly, the only one I didn't care for was the brother.
like Slim Shady.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so we talked a little bit briefly about this, right? So like the whole family is like a weird mishmash of like alt goth people,
Yes.
right? The
Mom's
mom's
doing
a
like tattoos at the
tattoo
beginning.
artist.
Yeah.
She's like her first scene, she's like dyeing her hair.
Yeah.
She's fixing her tattoo gun.
Older sister is attending a protest.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's a climate protest. I think
Yes.
she has like a poster that she's making at some point.
Mm.
The brother is like an aspiring DJ.
And a loud DJ.
A very dude. I would be so
Yeah.
fucking mad.
At all hours of the night.
That's so you say that, right? What fucking time does this movie start?
Dude, I don't fucking know.
There's an establishing shot,
Yeah.
and I swear it's like 9:30 p.m.
Because they're going for pizza. Like
Yeah.
so like
And
it's dinner time at some point.
at the very least.
So this is like winter. This is like December 21st in like California is where this has to take place.
I guess.
Yeah.
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 I guess.
Which I think
yeah.
it does take place in California.
It does take place in
Yeah.
California. There's
Yeah.
there's California plates.
Yeah.
But yeah, at one point, like there, she's there for a while talking, and it's already dark.
Mhm.
And then she mentions that, like, hey, I got this for your dad, and you go, oh shit, dad's gone.
Yeah.
And she's like, go get some fucking pizza with your family. So he's been there for a while already,
Yeah.
and it's still dark,
It's
and
still
it's
there.
not bedtime.
Nope.
And what was the other thing? At one point, like she's like, "Hey, did you wash my shirt?" And she's like, "Put it in the laundry." I'm like, "Doing laundry at this time?
Yeah.
It's got to be 2 in the morning."
Lots of doing lots of stuff at this time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
DJing so loud, so
DJing so
late
loud, spelunking in the
in
earthquake.
the
Yeah.
earthquake. Uh but so this is where we kind of like talking about spelunking, like the Necronomicon, that's the book that they show,
Yes.
right?
I know that from the phone game that I
From the
used to
phone game. Yeah. And so they one of the things that I really do like about this is they are able to kind of do their own thing while still having the possibility of this being in the same universe.
play.
Like it's not specifically said, it's not like canonical as far as we're aware, other than like what the directors have said in like interviews that are, I mean, you can only take what they say with a grain of salt because like who knows,
Right.
things might change, right? But like they do say like, oh, we found this book. So he finds the book along with some like vinyls,
Mhm.
and he's like listening to the vinyls.
Yeah.
And you hear a priest go like, oh, we found one of the 3 volumes of the Book of the Dead.
You hear Bruce Campbell.
Apparently it is Bruce
Yeah.
Campbell, and I can't remember who it was. It was either Raimi or Cronin who said that that is canonically supposed to be Ash,
Oh, really?
apparently.
Interesting.
Which you're like, well, at what point was Ash in,
Priest.
like, not necessarily the priest, but like in the 1920s? Because
Yes.
the vinyls do have dates, and I think it says like 1920 or 19 something.
And would Ash have been one to fuck with things that he knew he should not have been fucking with?
Well, if you've seen any of the other shows, you would know that Ash is absolutely a fucking moron.
Okay.
So he might, but no. So Ash is not the priest who's reading the book.
Gotcha.
Ash is the voice that you hear go like, "Don't fuck with that. It's called the Book of the Dead."
Ah.
He's basically the one saying like, "Don't do it. It's fucking stupid."
Okay. Okay. I
Um,
feel better now.
yeah. So Ash is inherently a moron.
Yeah. But he doesn't have hubris.
Yeah, and he's also like, when it comes to like dealing with this, he is weirdly like straight to business,
Mhm.
right? That's one of those things that I've always felt about his character. Why I think he's funny is that like in all the shit that he's been through, it's kind of made him crazy,
Hmm.
and everybody else who deals with this is just like straight serious because they are like, what the fuck is happening?
That's the thing with this movie, and I think so too. So this is where I separate it from like it's like for Thano, it's a 1.5 star movie, whereas for what it's trying to be, it's not a 1.5 star movie.
Yeah.
But like as to Ash being crazy, like this is like a zero optimism, zero silver lining kind of tale for me. Because like
And
that little girl,
dude, that little girl's gonna need so much therapy.
that therapy ain't gonna cut it. Therapy doesn't do shit for any of our friends.
This girl is going to need as much therapy as the little girl in Knock at the Cabin.
It's the same principle for like if I was Mark Watney, the Martian,
Uh-huh.
and I realized I was stranded on Mars. Just taking off my helmet. I'm like, all right,
Just end it.
it's been real, right? Like 20 minutes into that attack scene, I'm like, all right, like once I saw, especially when I saw that it got the sister too, I'm like, all right, everybody,
Call it
game
in.
over.
Just and that's so, and that really is a symptom of the 2013 movie.
Yeah.
Because like in all the other ones, there is an inherent silliness to it, which I'm not saying this movie does not have some silly and funny shit. They're the Deadites are, like I said, they're zombies, but with like attitude.
Yeah.
Like they will like mock you, they will like dig at things that like are like insecurities.
Which the mom kind of does in this.
The mom.
Like she doesn't dig at insecurities, but like as a demon, she is like verbally very like she doesn't say your mother sucks cocks in hell, but she basically says like your mother sucks cocks in hell.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think one of the things at the end, she's like, "You look like mom, and you're gonna be a fucking disappointment, you
Yeah.
groupie whore."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like they dig at you. They're mean. They're like mean spirited
Yeah.
beings, right? And that's like the most remnant that you get from like the original movies.
Yeah.
But in this one, like it's all cranked up. Like the bleakness is cranked up for sure.
Yeah.
Like the realism of some of the things that happen is still not quite to the level of the last movie. Like in the last movie, there are some scenes that you're like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the closest we get here is there's that scene where the girl is chewing on the
Glass.
glass, yeah, the
Yeah.
wise the Jesus, the wine glass,
Yeah.
and you kind of see some of it, right? Where I feel
Swallows.
like in
Yeah.
the 2013 movie they would have gone like two notches
Yeah.
higher. Um,
Unnecessary for me.
Not unnecessary, very necessary, right? So there's a couple scenes where I feel like they were toned down, and I think the reason for that, which I think doesn't make a lot of sense, is because this movie was supposed to be a streaming original.
Oh, interesting.
It was supposed to be an HBO Max original movie.
Yeah.
They did test screenings, and it did really well. And
Mm.
they're like, "Oh, we could make money off of this."
Can we stop with the streaming originals, by the way?
I think, yeah,
I just want to see the mediocre Chris Evans Ana de Armas movie.
in theaters.
I don't want to fucking pay for Apple TV. Aside over. Continue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it was because of that they felt like maybe they couldn't go too hard. But I'm like, if you're gonna be on the streaming service, like, what are the fucking rules?
So you're
Like, there
saying
are no
so
rules.
you're saying because it was streaming that would have made it go less hard.
I think, etc. It
Yeah.
feels like.
Maybe because there's like less of a I mean, I guess you can put parental controls on, but if I'm like 14,
Hmm.
right, and I go to the theater, like they're gonna need to see some identification,
Hmm.
right? If I'm like 14 and I'm at my house, I'm like, like let me just watch whatever the fuck I want, right?
I guess.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, no rules, but more accessible to. But like I said, but this is all speculation on my part.
Yeah. Because like so a couple of attempts that I noticed, like in that scene where she's eating the glass,
Mm.
like you see the glass kind of moving down
Yep.
the throat and it pokes a little bit.
Yep.
I feel like in the 2013 movie, you would have seen the glass chunks come through all the way. The brother gets stabbed like in the bicep,
Yeah.
and then she just takes the knife out. Where I feel like in the 2013, she would have like pulled it down and removed like the muscle.
I was gonna say when the sister gets impaled by the glass, like A, I feel like her hand was very usable like after that.
Yeah.
And then B, like once I saw it, actually that one I was like not that impressed with because I'm like, oh, I feel like I saw this in the last
We've
one.
seen that so many
Yeah,
times.
I feel like I saw it in like Halloween, like the last one.
We saw that in Halloween. We
Yeah.
saw that in Sick.
Yeah.
There was another movie recently where we also saw that happen. I think it was a knife. And
Scream, probably. Yeah.
In
right.
Scream.
So that was very underwhelming to me. But
Mhm.
like, so I can see where like bits and pieces of these like kills and gore things would be considered
Yeah.
like bait.
And it still does a fun job at like having those scenes that happen where it makes you go, ooh, like you wince.
Yeah.
I know, and people had different sensibilities, right? Like I was talking to Rob on their way home, where the thing that got him was when the earring got ripped
Yeah.
in the elevator.
I never liked that.
He was like, as someone who's had that almost happen, he's like,
Ooh.
that feels like I felt that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The cheese grater
The cheese grater was fucked.
to the left.
That was fucked up.
You see a glimpse of this in the trailer, and you're like, oh, I know that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's so fast, and they don't really like
Linger on
show.
it.
Yeah, they don't linger on it as much. I don't know if you haven't seen anything from the last movie, have you?
I never seen anything. The only I
Just that
do not
game.
exaggerate. The game on my iPhone 4. It's the only
Like,
experience I've
Just
had
to,
with
to give you
Evil
some
Dead.
examples, like in that movie, there is a scene where this girl, like, she's a nurse,
Yeah.
and so she has like nursing stuff, like nurse equipment, like she's got some medical tools,
Yeah.
and the possessed girl takes her scalpel and licks it and
Uh,
splits her tongue.
yeah. All right.
And you see that shit.
I guess here's the thing. Here's what I'll say. Like, if it got to that level, then I would have like 1 starred instead of 1.5 starred this movie. But like, I think fair enough to all your points. But I feel like this movie just effectively made everything be so destructive and so chaotic and so like utterly hopeless
Yeah.
that like any of that for me would have just been like overkill.
So then I'm really curious, and we don't have to test this theory.
Mhm.
What you would
If
think
you
of
took a cheese grater,
something
like right,
that too of what you would think of a show like Ash versus Evil Dead.
it was a show, right? I haven't. Yeah,
It did. So it
yeah,
did have a 2017 show
yeah.
on Stars, which was already kind of a death sentence because like who the fuck watches anything on Stars?
Yes,
But it does have not not as like maliciously like grotesque.
right.
Yes, there is a lot of violence. Yes, there's a lot of blood, but it's all entirely played almost for laughs.
Mhm.
Like people get shit blown off, and the Deadites are like really mean, but
Right.
it's all played with like a sense of like there is some hope because you have Ash there to like be comedic about it.
Yeah,
Like he is the comedic relief in that show.
yeah.
So I wonder what then that does for someone like you who goes, this is extreme violence for the sake of violence. There is no hope. There's no fun really. But what if there was some fun?
You know what that reminds me of actually, and I'm not saying this is your reason for having your opinion on the show, but did you watch the first episode of Jury Duty?
I did.
And did you enjoy it?
Good.
Now you don't like The Office,
I don't hate The Office.
right? But you
I
don't
just
care for The
don't
Office.
care for it.
So, and I'm not saying all deadpan humor is the same, but I know that there's a lot of people who watch The Office and their critique for it, which I don't think would be yours, but their critique that they can't get into it, they're like, all these people are assholes. Like, I can't sympathize with any of these people.
Mhm.
I think what distinguishes Jury Duty from that show specifically, even though there's been much deadpan in between, is that you have the guy who's not actually an actor
Mhm.
and he's just like innocently laughing during all of
Yeah.
this, right? And I guess all these people, but you have him as like the focal point where you're like, like this lovable person is just like thrown into this
Uh-huh.
absurd setting, whereas like Steve Carell is like the worst of the worst in like
Uh-huh.
that office group. So the analogy is for this, would I like a show better where you have comic relief in the form of Ash to sort of like deflate the
Mhm. Like the
maybe
insanity of it.
yeah, maybe. I do think that this movie, what it does very well is I think it does. If you want to think about it deeply for a second, I think it does portray the nature of evil very, very well. And I think at some point it
Mhm.
even mentions that like, they don't have like a plan or logic or anything.
No,
Like,
they're just there.
yeah, evil just like is chaotic and destroys at a
Yes,
much
this is peak
yeah,
definition chaotic evil.
yeah,
Like they're just here. They don't have like a grand plan to like take over the world.
yeah,
Yeah, obviously they would probably want to,
yeah.
but they are just there to like
They're there
fuck.
to be mean.
Yes, they are there, and that's really what they do.
It's a mean. It's a mean guy.
It's a very
mean.
mean guy. Um, so I do want to talk a little bit about some of the performances on here. Um, I do think this movie does not work if our main girl, um, Alyssa Sutherland, does not put on a good show.
She's the aunt.
She's the mom.
Oh yeah, for
She's
sure.
the mom. Like she does a great job at like kind of showing you that yeah she's a little tough, but she's not a bad mom.
I would say 5, sure. Actually,
Yes.
yes.
And then once she starts to like turn, she does fight it. Good for her.
Yeah.
She puts on a good like fight against whatever is trying to take over. She
Mm.
does try to warn her sister. And when she does finally make that transition, which is in the scene
The bathtub.
in the bathtub,
Yep.
uh,
The unholy baptism.
yeah, it is a very like visually like creepy looking scene of her like crawling on the ceiling
Yeah.
and like contorting herself.
After the roiling, water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very very unsettling. And then we said the sister who is Auntie Beth. What's her name? The actress?
Is it? And
Lily Sullivan,
Lily
who plays
Sullivan.
Beth,
Yeah.
who is another, you know, kind of, I don't want to say tragic. She's, down on her luck a little bit because it seems like her job's not really going anywhere.
Who'd have thought?
Uh, who would have thought that being a guitar
Yeah.
technician does not,
Yeah.
open a lot of doors? But she's also recently found that she's pregnant,
Found a baby.
right?
Yep.
And so then this is, I don't know how I feel about like the theme of motherhood. I don't know like how great that is like touched on.
Yeah.
It's kind of there.
It's kind of there.
I think this the element of family I think is there very strongly.
Are you happy with the fact that, speaking as an Evil Dead fan,
Uh,
are you happy with the fact that most of the kids don't make it out alive? I think if the kids,
I would have liked more of the kids to survive, which I know out of character for me as someone who
yeah,
usually hates kids in movies. But I think it's on brand for the
I
series.
was gonna say if the movie was interested in motherhood, then I think the three kids would have survived. Because like
Mhm.
that youngest girl, there's nothing particularly special about her.
No, she fucks up multiple times.
Yeah. Like, if anything, if I had to pick the one who I thought was like the main kid, I would have thought it was the older sister.
Yeah,
But
I did. So
yeah,
I did think the
yeah.
same thing too. I do think that the show or not the show, the series, while it's not opposed to like offing kids,
Mhm.
I do think that they wanted to have that little girl who be like she's like the innocent one, right? She's easily tricked by the mom
Oh
in
yeah,
that very stupid
stupid ass
scene
kid.
where this woman who just ripped people apart in the hallway. There is literally a kid
Yeah.
close to the age of this girl who gets both his arms ripped off and thrown against like a door, and you see the kid laying there with no arms.
There's also everything that happened in the apartment.
That too.
Yep.
And she's just like, "Oh, I think mommy got better."
So let me ask you this question: the obviously, like, there's a lot of dumb that you can excuse in horror movie, right? When does it become inexcusable for you?
When it's not fun.
Yeah.
I think as long as there's some sense of fun, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like not to bring it back to John Wick Chapter 4,
Right.
but let's bring it back to John Wick Chapter 4. So much of that is so dumb. So much of that is like
Yeah.
it's exhausting,
Yeah.
but it's fun. And
It's
so
fun.
you're able to kind of,
Right.
you know,
I wouldn't say the dumb in this movie ruined the movie for me by any means, but like, A, the spelunking, B, that girl, like, and then C, there's the scene where the sister's like, I finally believe in what I see. And she finally sees most of the transformation her sister rigor mortising when she's clearly like dead. She's like, hey, sis?
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
was pretty fucked.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also a world where you're kind of almost expected to be like, there is no supernatural shit going on anyway.
Yeah.
So I guess it is like, why the fuck would you absolutely believe any of this is demonic or anything like that?
Until you see the projectile vomiting and the clearly contorted body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think she does.
And the thing with the eggs.
The thing with the eggs was weird,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I like once that scene happens, so she's like dead on the bed.
Yeah.
And then she just like hears the voicemail come on its own,
Mhm.
and then the sister stands up.
Yeah.
And once that scene happens, like shit goes down within like a minute or two.
Yeah.
So I can kind of excuse that. It's not like she's playing along with whatever Demon Ellie is saying.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure it's like very soon after that happens is when she gets stabbed in the hand with the no,
glass.
she passes out
Mhm.
and they take her to the bed.
Yes.
That's when that happens.
Yeah.
Sorry, to the bathtub.
Yeah.
And that is where she comes out with the glass.
Right.
So as far as she's aware, like sister woke up, she's burning up. Let's cool her down.
Yeah.
And then that just like continues. And then it's not until she gets stabbed in the hand that the neighbor comes out, interrupts them, and that's when he gets munched on.
It is impressive what they were able to do with setting in this movie.
It's a very like confined movie.
Yes.
There's really only three settings, not including obviously the intro to the movie,
Yeah.
because you've got apartment,
Permanent.
which is only really like 3 to 4 rooms at best.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, so as far as like the apartment goes, it's like maybe like 4 bedrooms because you got the kitchen,
Yeah.
bathroom, living room, and then the kids' bedroom,
Yeah.
and like that's really it. You have the hallway
Yep.
where like shit goes down, and then you have the parking lot,
Yep.
right? So you got like 3 locations, and like that's it. And they
Yeah.
make a really good use of that like limit.
Yeah. Especially when like loud ass shit is going on
Yeah.
in one part of the room. And I could like it did manage to suspend my disbelief where I'm like, oh yeah, like these people would not be aware that older sister is just like clanging up a storm and eating some glass,
Hmm.
like over in this other room. Like they do a good job of like making each like part of the
Room.
conflict feel isolated.
Yeah.
It,
Well, the only reason why I think that kind of plays a little better is because when sister is attacking um the brother, and like
mm,
she does kill him.
mm,
When that's happening, Beth is listening to the recording, and
mm,
she's got like the big noise canceling like DJ
yes,
headphones. So that I can buy. Um and then she gets attacked by the mom,
yeah,
right? She sneaks in through the vents.
yeah,
Uh but we do have that fun scene of like the brother sneaking around like following the sound of the vents.
yeah.
And then we have the sister who's been wrapped up like a fucking like a
Like a
serial
ghosty.
killer, which I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's sus as hell, kid.
yeah,
She's like floating, following them.
yeah,
That I could kind of understand a little bit more, like
yeah.
that she would not be a
That should not
hundred
be aware.
percent. Yeah.
But that, and also the fact that like all this is happening on this floor, and like, and the the fact that everybody else in the apartment building presumably like doesn't know shit is going on
Yeah,
is
there.
cool. Like the movie was. I'm not saying it as a critique. I'm saying
Yeah.
that like the movie was able to make me buy the fact that like total hell is breaking loose in this like
Hmm.
small confined space.
Yeah.
And
The movie, so not only does that work for that reason, the movie also kind of gives itself an out,
mm,
where you know for a fact that this building is being torn down in a month. So
mhm,
there's a good chance not a lot of people are still there.
yeah,
At the very end of the movie, the girl who gets possessed, who is then the main deadite at the very beginning of the movie,
yeah,
says like, "Oh, I almost couldn't sleep because like the storm kept me up. It was so loud, and there was a lot of thunder and lightning."
right,
So, well, there's also that.
yeah,
You don't know how many floors might be completely vacant.
yeah,
Because the main family is on floor 13, and the girl who is in the beginning of the movie, she's in the fifth floor.
yeah,
So there's wiggle room. Like if you really want to go with the logic,
right,
you could logic it, but you don't really think about that when you're watching the movie because
correct,
it's all working pretty well.
yeah,
Um, of course, we have to have the obligatory chainsaw in this movie.
yes.
There is no callback to the no arm in this movie. No one gets like
I
there.
noticed. I was waiting for because she has a shotgun and a chainsaw,
She's got a shotgun and a
and I
chainsaw.
was waiting for someone to lose an arm.
Yeah, I
And
mean, Ellie loses an arm, she shoots it off with a shotgun, but yeah, usually if Deadites lose an arm, it doesn't really
right.
count. Um, and in the last movie, the girl gets a fucking truck flipped on her arm,
Oh yeah.
and she's trying to reach the chainsaw with her other arm, and she cannot reach, so she rips her fucking hand off.
Jesus.
It's bonkers. It's a
Yeah.
great movie. Um, we have the wood chipper,
Yeah.
which we
The
do
wood
see at the
chipper.
beginning of the movie, where I was like, oh, someone's going in that wood chipper.
Ah yes.
Um, And I mean that's the extent of the movie. I'm curious as to see where they go from here. There is no way they're not making another movie.
For sure. This has only got. I've only seen positive. Yeah. I'm the only negative response I've seen to this movie.
And I would say like it's not anything to like be like like, yeah, it makes sense why you might not like this
Hmm.
movie, right? Like, if you're not into this type of shit, you're not into this type of shit. It's like the people who like me, who I like that Terrifier movie. I know for a fact that like outside of the cult following that that movie has, that movie is not for everybody.
Hmm.
And it's same with this. Like, it's still a very gross, it's a very violent, very mean movie.
Mean.
It's so
He's
mean.
mean guy.
This
Mean
mean
guy.
guy. Um, but it's making so much money.
Good.
Like, the budget for the movie is about 15 to 20 million.
Not a
Um,
lot, I feel like.
it's not a lot. It's
Yeah.
for a horror movie. It's like that sweet spot, a little higher still than like a Blumhouse movie
Yeah.
because those are usually like 5 to 10 million. Um, but for like a long-standing franchise like this is still very low for a long-standing
Yeah.
franchise. But it's already made like $45 million
Global. Yeah.
global. So like it's already gotten its money in 1 week
Yeah.
plus
Plus
whatever,
whatever's happened
right?
since.
I don't think there's really any horror movies coming out that I feel like would take away from like the main crowd. I know we have movies like Guardians coming out in 2 weeks.
Correct.
Um, I don't think there's a lot of crossover between this movie and Beau is Afraid as far as like horror.
No. We saw this movie on a Thursday, on the opening Thursday, and the theater was
It
pretty.
was very busy.
Yep.
I was surprised. I was
Yeah.
honestly very surprised by how full it was.
Yeah.
As far as critically standing the movie goes, um, overwhelmingly positive. Not like glowing,
Hmm.
but I mean, it's still like 85 on Rotten Tomatoes with a 7.2 out of 10, and an 80% audience with like an 8.2 out of 10.
That's gonna be what I mean. That's kind of what I feel like a horror movie could hope for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've had other horror movies like Black Phone who have scored way higher, but like those are
It's a
outliers,
better movie.
right? Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. And I mean, just the fact that the studio was like,
Yeah.
let's take this out of streaming,
And put
let's
it
give
in.
this a proper theatrical. I feel like they have the confidence in the series. They know that it's making money. They know people want more. We're gonna get sequels.
Here's to more moves like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm tired of having so many streaming services, man.
Back to jury duty, you know what was refreshing was the fact that it's all fucking available at the same time.
Is it all available? I know there's
Yeah.
like 8 episodes
So
available.
I'm only on episode 4, so I don't. I mean, but they were all released on the same day,
Okay.
and it feels a lot like peak Netflix, like very creative, very
Mhm.
sharp. Yeah,
It does feel like we're totally tangenting
yeah.
here, but I don't give a fuck. In So The Office, for example,
Hmm.
like maybe this was just me not giving The Office like the due diligence, and
Right.
it was the same problem that I had with Parks and Rec.
Hmm.
Or like I watched one season, I was like, I'm not really digging this, but then you give it more time and you kind of start liking it. That was
Yeah,
my thing with Parks and Rec. Um, this one hits the ground running,
yeah,
and like I think it's that premise where all the characters are basically like the residents of Pawnee,
yes.
and you have one guy who's just like, yes, it's totally normal. And I love his like stupid little reactions.
He's so he's so wholesome the whole time.
He's just happy to be there, which
Yeah,
I'm like, who the fuck is happy to
to
be
be in
here?
jury duty.
But it's got to be hard.
Oh, for sure.
It's got to be hard to run that show.
Perhaps I was thinking about how how that works. You must have to just find a whole bunch of method actors.
It's got to be that. It's got to be a lot of people who are really good at improv
Yeah,
because you can kind of like stage a scene, you can kind of write some of the situations.
right.
You cannot
You can't
write how
script.
he's going
Yeah,
to
react.
react and how then you have to react.
Yeah, yeah.
I love the scene where he's like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom and rub one out. He's like, you go do that, man. All right. On that note,
Uh,
we will be back soon. There's a couple movies coming out. I don't know.
yes.
I don't know what we'll be able to see. For sure, Guardians.
I'd like to see Mario.
Mario's good.
I'd like to see Bo. I'd like to shit on Bo or not shit on Bo.
That one could be a fun one.
That could be a fun
We'll
one.
see.
Yeah.
It could either
Just
be
to carve out a whole fucking evening.
it's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, we'll be back soon with something. Until next time, he is Thano.
He's Javier.
Bye.
Bye.